includes many famous actors and actresses like Leonardo DiCaprio from Romeo and Juliet, Kate Winslet from Titanic, Reese Witherspoon from Legally Blonde, Jennifer Aniston from Friends, Angelina Jolie from Gia, Denzel Washington from Malcolm X, Tom Cruise from A Few Good Men, Tom Hanks from Forrest Gump and Saving Private Ryan, Meryl Streep from The River Wild.
Pop culture in the 90s was unique, and the 90s style can be recognized by anyone over the age of 12 in the present time. Although our overall style has changed since the 90s, we do share some of the same fashion tendencies. We're all familiar with some of the fashion trends in the 90s, which include neon windbreakers, ripped jeans, bandanas, cloth wristbands or sweatbands, and oversized striped sweaters. Oh man. One thing that has made a comeback recently are chokers.
Fashion was also important in the music industry. In the 90s, Michael Jackson was in music as well as a fashion icon. He was often seen wearing flannel shirts and ripped jeans with studded embellishments.
The 90s were full of some of the most memorable sports achievements. The New York Yankees went 10 years with a no-hitter until their pitcher, Jim Abbott, who was born without a right hand, threw one on September 4th, 1994. Ripken played 2,632 consecutive games over 21 seasons. Monica Seles was the face of women's tennis in the early 1990s, with 8 Grand Slam victories before the age of 20.
Unfortunately, Seles was killed by an obsessed fan at one of her games who ran onto the court and stabbed her.
One of the largest telescopes, the Hubble telescope, was launched into orbit in 1990. The Hubble was designed to be maintained and serviced by astronauts, and it's still operating today. The first DVD appeared in the late 1990s. The superior picture and sound of the DVD helped it quickly disrupt the existing VHS tape market. The first flash drive came out in 1999. Initially, it was only sold with 25 gigabytes. The first DVR was sold in 1999, and it quickly gained popularity and is now integrated with the TV. In 1993, the first truly portable MP3 player was released.
During the 90s, the first large Apple desktop computer was released. Also during the 90s, one of the biggest advancements in instant communication happened, which was the email. The email was one of the biggest revelations of the 90s, and it ended up being the glue that held together the entire World Wide Web. Email created an extremely accessible communication line that could connect one person with anybody else in the world at high speed. The introduction of the internet in the 90s was able to completely rearrange the business world as well as each personal social agenda. The internet in the 90s made the business world way more personal and cut down the amount of time that each individual business person spent isolated in cubicles. The social benefits to the internet are fairly obvious, where it became way easier in the 90s to connect with family and friends. Along with the revolution and advancements in technology, internet, and computers, Microsoft Office was introduced. The Microsoft Office software package contained everything any businessman needed for his PC computer.
Our taste in snacks have changed greatly since the 90s. Some of the famous snacks include Dunkaroos, Bubble Tape, Pop Rocks, Lunchables, Ring Pops, Shark Bites. The cartoons that we watch today are much different from the ones that were from the 90s. We all know the cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants, but did you know that it was originally going to be called Sponge Boy? In the cartoon Ed, and Eddie, the colored tongues were inspired by the creator's sons eating multi-colored candies. There are many TV shows from the 90s that inspired TV shows from today. Some of them include The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Full House, Boy Meets World, Friends, and many others. I'm going to share with you some facts that you may not know about some of these shows from the 90s. One of the Full House members almost had the Olsen twins fired because he hated how much they cried during filming, but the producer didn't like the redheaded twins that replaced them, so they brought Mary-Kate and Ashley back. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen were credited as Mary-Kate Ashley Olsen, like the same person, during the show for several seasons because the producers wanted to hide the fact that the twins were playing one single role. In the show Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, Sabrina and her talking cat were the only character in the entire series that appeared in all 163 episodes. In the show Boy Meets World, the main character, Corey, was supposed to have many friends throughout the series, opposed to just having Sean as a best friend. Sean's character only had 2 lines in the original script for the Boy Meets World pilot. Ryder Strong, the character who played Sean, really hated his iconic haircut he had for the show, but the producers did not allow him to touch his hair during the run of the series. But once it was canceled, Sean decided to cut his hair and get a new hairstyle.
The Lion King was one of the most successful films of the 90s, bringing in $300 million in its theatrical run and over $1 million in the year of its release alone.
In the 90s show Full House, Mary-Kate and Ashley were losing teeth at different times and had to wear fake teeth in order to maintain the facade of 2 actresses playing one character.
Toy Story, which came out in the 90s, was the first movie to be completely crafted by computers. The Fox show Cops is considered the first reality-style TV show, and it first aired in 1990.
And those were just some of the facts that you may not have known about some of the most famous shows from the 90s.
Some of the top musicians in the 90s included Madonna, Nirvana, Michael Jackson, and NSYNC. The popular genres of the time were pop, rock, and R&B. Alternative rock had a strong appearance in 90s pop music as a result of 80s rock setting a strong foundation from the decade before. People like Justin Timberlake and Beyonce began their careers in the 90s as a member of a band or pop ensemble. The fad of pop bands began in the 90s with groups like Destiny's Child, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, and TLC. 90s bands created some of the most iconic music albums like NSYNC's No Strings Attached, and they also created songs that will be remembered through the decades like No Scrubs, Say My Name, Jumpin', and Everybody.
The Super Nintendo gaming system also became very popular in the 1990s. It was a game console that plugged into people's TVs at home. Here's some fun facts about 90s pop culture.
Initially, Celine Dion had no interest in singing My Heart Will Go On and had to be coaxed into cutting a demo by her legendary record executive producer. She went on to nail it in a single take, and the final track features her demo song. The Backstreet Boys, a popular boy band of the 90s, got their name from their hometown flea market in Orlando. Sometimes 90s music was a bit too long. Madonna's original cut of Ray of Light was over 10 minutes long, and Guns N' Roses' November Rain was 8 minutes and 58 seconds long. Cher was the first musician in the 1990s to use auto-tune. Rap music became apparent in 90s pop culture when Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby became the first rap song to reach #1 on America's Top 40. Some popular toys in the 90s included Nerf guns, Tamagotchis, Beanie Babies, the Super Nintendo gaming system, and Game Boys.
Ryan Gosling turned down the offer to become a Backstreet Boy. At its peak in the 90s, 50% of CDs were produced by AOL. Sarah Michelle Gellar turned down the role of Cher in Clueless. Marlon Wayans was originally cast to play Robin in Batman Forever. In the 90s, many major political events occurred. Nelson Mandela was freed from prison on November 11, 1990, who was originally imprisoned for opposing South Africa's system of racial segregation. 1992 was one of Bill Clinton's years on the campaign trail as Democratic presidential candidate. He famously played the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show, which was a big pop culture moment that was known to have attracted many voters to his campaign. A very famous scandal that happened in the 1990s was Princess Diana's divorce from Prince Charles on September 4, 1992. It was said that she received £17 million from him and was stripped of her title of Her Royal Highness. Another famous scandal of the 90s was the Tonya Harding-Nancy Kerrigan scandal of 1994. Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan were rivals in Olympic ice skating until one year Nancy Kerrigan's knee was shattered by a hitman hired by Tonya Harding's husband. Finally, arguably the largest scandal of the 1990s was the lengthy double murder trial of O.J. Simpson. O.J. was found liable for their deaths and had to pay $33.5 million in damages. He's currently serving for armed robbery.
In 1999, the U.S. gave complete control of the Panama Canal to Panama, which ended an 85-year period of the U.S. control over the area. The President of the United States through the majority of the decade of the 90s was Bill Clinton, who served in the position from 1993 to 2001. In conclusion, the decade of the 90s has a tremendous effect on the clothes we wear, the TV we watch, the music we listen to, and the beliefs we have today.